This week's devotional is called, If You Love Your Children, You Will Spank Them. Now, before I get into this teaching, I'm just going to say if you get offended or you get irritated by this, I really don't care. Just throwing that out there for free. So let me get into this. Proverbs 13, verse 24. He who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him promptly. So see, by not spanking your children when they're out of line, biblically, you're not giving them any justice. You're actually giving them permission to be rebellious. You're giving them permission to be hellions because biblically, you don't really love your children. I'm just telling it how it is. You don't really love your children if you don't ever discipline them. You don't ever give them structure. You don't ever give them boundaries, because kids need boundaries. They don't need to have everything just given to them. They need to have boundaries and a structure, okay? Now, when it talks about, but he who loves him disciplines him promptly. In other words, when you are out of line, the person who is your mom, your dad, whoever is responsible for you, should discipline you promptly so that the fruit later, when you're a teenager, would be respect, honor, honoring your parents, honoring your elders. That is the fruit of someone who has been disciplined, has integrity. Good morals come out of that. Nothing bad comes out of being disciplined. But person who does not discipline his son or his daughter absolutely hates them. Absolutely. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You cannot tell me that you love your child, but you never spank their behind. I'm telling you, biblically, you're a liar, because the Bible says this clear as day, and I love how the Bible doesn't have no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, it's just, it is what it is. If you don't like me, take it up with God. I did not write the Bible. Because it says, he who spares his rod hates his child. In other words, that means, if you just let everything slide all the time. Now, I believe we need to give grace, but if you just let everything slide all the time, they're not going to learn anything. And I like how the Bible puts how they're, for the other one, they're promptly disciplined. In other words, you have an eye roll or whatever. I'm going to get rid of that right now. I'm going to give you guys a little testimony with this. My parents, they disciplined me. And because of that, I have honor towards my elders. I have respect towards my parents. And, because if they didn't discipline me, they didn't correct me, I would not be able to believe them when they said that they loved me, because studying out the word for myself, for my own life, I can see clearly that the Bible states if they do not spank me, then they do not love me. My parents spanked my behind because they loved me, and they did not want to see me become a rebellious person in society. So the reason why they spanked my behind was because they wanted to have God's character in me, God's morals. And I thank them every day for spanking my behind, because that actually made me the woman that I am today. And you only get that by discipline. And discipline, it's not enjoyable in the moment, but when you get older, you realize that there was actually a purpose behind this. The whole concept of this teaching is, I get so irritated with people. Honestly, I do. I get irritated with people when they say, they love their kids, but they don't believe in spanking. I'm sorry, how can you love your child, but you don't believe in spanking? I'm sorry, that's not biblical. You have to spank hell out of your children. You literally do. You have to spank that rebellious attitude, spank the all that garbage out of them, because if you don't, what's going to happen is the fruit of their life is going to be rebellious. And I'm grateful for my parents because they didn't let me get away with anything. Okay? I rolled my eyes and they were promptly to correct me. But you know what? They always sat me down afterward. My dad would always sit me down afterward and told me why I got the spanking. And you know what? That helped me. That helped shape me into the woman that I am today. So if people, you can always tell when people really love you because they will not be afraid to correct you. So this teaching is directed towards, people who say they love their kids, but they don't want to spank them. I'm sorry, you don't love your kids. You don't. Because love has action. I mean, love isn't just about encouraging the kids all the time. No, that's good. We also have to exemplify an action of discipline, an action of correction, because you can't just always have, itching ears for the stuff you want to hear. You got to be able to take the meat. And this is the meat kind of lesson today. You got to be able to take it. Because we can't always, just let them have junk food all the life. We got to establish boundaries. And the only way we do that is by laying down correction when it's needed to be. I'm not saying don't have grace and don't have compassion, but there are times when you have to have the spanking, the belt, so to speak. Because that sometimes, especially if your kid is strong-willed, like I was, you'll need that structure in that child's life, because that is the only way that some children, get it to their brain to not do that thing anymore. But I just want to encourage you, the only way that you can truly say that you love your child and truly mean it is by doing what the Bible says. Bringing a correction when there is needed. Not spoiling, not sparing the rod. Not being afraid to spank the child. Because that's actually a good thing. Because then when you spank your child, what you're going to produce is righteousness, peace, all the fruits of the Spirit. And you're going to produce a man or a woman of God with integrity. And that's ultimately what you want. If you don't do that, then you're going to have a rebellious person. But biblically, you can't blame the child, because the structure is in the parents' hands of how that child is going to become, who that child is going to become. I'm going to say that again. The structure of how the child acts is all in the parent. So if the parent never corrects the child, never disciplines the child, well, you shouldn't be surprised when the child is a teenager, when the child is out of hand. Because you put into that child, you allowed that child to believe that child run the house. So don't be surprised when they're a teenager and you've never disciplined them when they act like this. But I just hope this was an encouragement to you. I hope that this opened some eyes. And I hope if no one did do this, that I hope that it made you feel uncomfortable. And I hope that this helped you realize that this is important. Like, we shouldn't just be the people that just encourage all the time. But sometimes we have to bring correction. And correction isn't always the fun thing to do, but it's the most necessary thing to do. And it's got to be done with love. And it's got to be done out of right spirit. When you're angry, that's not the best time to bring about a correction. Because then your focus is more on anger. But I just want to encourage you guys. The only way you can prove that you love is by having a correction when it's needed. And not being afraid to correct. And not, being firm. of what you say to would, at the long run, it's really going to get you more respect with them when you do this. And I hope this encourages you guys. Love you guys. You guys are amazing. You are wonderfully and fearfully made. God is giving you the strength every day of your life. And I just give you all the glory and all the praise. Jesus. Amen.